Welcome to I Love This Thing So Fricking Much, a podcast about passion. My name is Sophie Katz, and today I am joined by Sami, a cosplayer, LARPer, performer, and Ren Fair enthusiast. Welcome to the show, Sami.
Hi, I'm super excited to be here. Thank you.
I'm excited to have you here. So here's how this works. Sami will have 3 minutes to talk about something that she loves. This can be a person, place, thing, concept, activity, anything she wants. Our only requirement is that she loves it wholeheartedly and wants to tell us why. Are you ready, Sami?
I'm ready.
Good. Got my timer here. Now, what do you love so freaking much?
So what I love so freaking much is actually LARP. This stands for live action role play. I'm sure that you've heard of it. I like to describe it to people as like Dungeons and Dragons or tabletop role play gaming, and going to fair and dressing up as like medieval, princess, and elf, high fantasy, had a baby together. So essentially what you're doing is you're building a D&D style character, and then you are completely what we call garbing up and going out for short period or long period of time with a huge group of people to kind of improv act out what you would normally play on your D&D table. So I'm mostly speaking from perspective of being in a specific LARP that is specific to Central Florida. It's called Mythic Adventures. I've been doing this LARP for probably about, like 6 years now, and started with a small group of people. And now we've got around 200 players. We have moved sites several times, and our community has grown significantly. So it's very exciting. So when you go to create your character, right, you have a lot of different options. You can be an elf, you can be a half orc, you can be a sort of beast person, like a cat person, or we have like a minotaur out there. You can be a high elf. And then on top of that, you build your class. You can be a winemaker. You can be somebody that just likes to fight. The LARP I go to is what's called a boffer style LARP. You can use foam weapons to hit each other, which can be both very scary and very exciting. And you have a wonderful set of what would be the DM for D&D, the GM, the game master for us, set of folks that put together stories for us and are running around out there, putting together these wonderful role play opportunities and monster encounters for us. So a typical event is we show up on Friday to the site. Right now we're using a sort of like a day camp site that has cabins that all have AC because we're in Florida and it's awesome. And we have like a central food hall that we set up as a tavern, and we come into play on Friday night. You get dressed in your garb, you stay out all night, you run around and fight monsters. Everyone is required to take a monster shift where you dress up as a goblin or an orc or some kind of undead wraith, and you run out and you get to fight the other players. You have damage stats that you call when you hit people. You can throw magic by way of throwing a small packet filled with grass seed and yelling your spell. And it's all very safe. We're huge on safety, and it's very fun.
That's awesome. Thank you for telling us about LARP today.
Yeah, of course.
How did you first get involved in LARP?
So I had a friend who went out to like a short one afternoon encounter and said, guys, this was really fun. I know it sounds like a little bit crazy, but it was actually really fun. Do you want to come out to Mythic Adventures' first 3-day event, which is the Friday to Sunday, and you stay overnight? And they wanted to build a pirate crew. And we were like, you know what? Sounds a little crazy, but I don't know. It does kind of sound like fun. And we went out to that first event, and I have been completely hooked ever since.
Sounds like they just gave you an invitation like, hey, let's go play pretend for a weekend.
Exactly. Like I said, it's a very big combination of dressing up in like your Ren Fair garb and then getting to like play D&D live, basically. So super fun.
So had you been into things like Dungeons and Dragons and Ren Fair before this?
Yeah, there wasn't, I'm from Seattle originally, and there's only one Ren Fair in Seattle. And then so moving down to Florida, the fact that we have like a million Ren Fairs was very cool. So I could get a little bit more into like going to fair and dressing up. And this past season is the first time I also performed in one of the fairs. And so I've always been a huge D&D enthusiast and always kind of dreamed of going to more Ren Fairs. And so being able to marry those two things was just like the coolest thing ever.
Talk a little more about that pirate adventure.
The friend that invited us said, I want to build a pirate crew. So we all kind of built when you build your character, you can take a specific like group that grants you extra special stats. Maybe you get a special hit or a special spell or a special skill. So we went into this special group that is a group of pirates. And I ended up going from character that just got picked up kind of on the side of the road to now 6 years later, I am the leader of this group and the captain of the pirate ship. It's me. And then I have a couple crew members that I've recruited since then. And we function as like a pirate crew with our quote ship is out on the lake at the LARP. And that's how we function in the games. We're this cool pirate crew that just kind of rolls into town sometimes.
How do you think about building your character? Do you have a specific approach to it?
It's different for different people, but I think the biggest piece of advice I've ever gotten and then given to people is that regarding LARP and the way it's different from playing D&D is that when you're out at LARP, you need to do something all day, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're not sitting at a table, you're actually actively out in the woods, hanging out with people. So think about what you want to do the entire time you're at LARP. If you want to actively be out hitting monsters and fighting, if you want to be actively out throwing spells at people, then build your character towards a sorcerer or a fighter. But we also have professions that make wine or are armor smiths. So if you want to be actively out talking to people and trying to sell them your wares, or you want to set up a store, move more towards those kind of professions. So just think about what you want to be doing all day while you're out there and then start from there to build your character.
Yeah, it's one thing to be sitting around the table and talking about, I swing my sword. And it's another thing to actually have to run up and swing the sword.
Absolutely. It can get very tiring. I have been running around until 3 a.m. before. I have fallen on the ground several times. There's a tiny bit of hazard out there, but we've got a fantastic medic team and all of it is like super safe. So
I'm also intrigued by the people who, for lack of a better term, are playing as like the non-playable character in a video game. They're the shopkeepers and things like that.
Yeah, I actually have a secondary character because it's rough to play a pirate captain all of the time, right? So I actually have a secondary character that is essentially a hobbit and she's a winemaker. So I just put on my cute outfits and walk around and sell people fake wine. And it's a good time. And it's really low key compared to having to be out there fighting and leading and throwing spells and stuff like that.
Is it all like imaginary transactions, or is there actually something that they give you and you give them?
Our game is very big on immersion. And so we actually don't like to have modern stuff around. So like you won't see someone sitting on their porch eating a bag of Doritos, for example, right? You want to have like your period appropriate or fantasy appropriate silverware and things like that. And so we have our in-game coin. It's a little square looking coin with a circle in the middle of it. The owner of the game had made specifically for the game. So there is actual like coin money that is being transferred. And then we're big on having what we call phys reps, which is a physical representation of the item that we're selling. So I am actually lugging around like wine bottles full of like juice. We can't have alcohol because we want to remain safe. And sometimes we play on like state parks and things like that. So it's just juice, but it's wine in quotes. And I actually am exchanging this bottle of wine for the actual coin.
Do you have any advice about improv when you play these games?
A lot of it is similar to a theater improv where you want to kind of get into your character, right? So take a little time before the game to sort of step aside and get into your character, think about what your character was doing last, maybe go through a list in your head of like what your goals are for the game, who is it that you need to talk to keep your plot moving, things like that. But because of the fact that you're not just say on stage for a few minutes, you're there all weekend, you do need to take time to go back to your cabin, shut off, rest. We have a period on like Saturday night where we go off site, eat dinner. So there is a balance between staying in your character and making sure that you're taking care of your own mental health. You could have a very wild scene where your best friend died or something like that. And you can be very into it, but make sure you take time after that to decompress after the weekend and talk to the people that were involved and make sure everything is good and chill.
Yeah, and to remember that the character best friend died, but the
Uh-huh.
person is still alive and well.
Exactly. Yep. It's a balance.
Is there anything that you don't like about LARP? And if so, how do you handle that?
The only thing I don't like about LARP is the mosquitoes.
Ah,
Honestly, mosquitoes are the worst out here in Florida, but I feel like between a combination of bug spray and making sure I'm fully clothed, like no exposed legs or whatnot, and Dr. Bronner's like peppermint soap, that's the only thing I hate about being out in the woods. And sometimes it feels like it's too short of a time. And we could be together for longer, but we all got real lives to go back to. So we cherish the time that we get together, and it's awesome.
Sami, thank you so much for telling us about something you love today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was really fun.
And thank you, our listeners, for tuning in today. If you would like to learn more about live action roleplay or our guest, Sami, you can find her social media information in the episode description. And don't forget to use the hashtag #LoveThisThingCast to tell us about the things you love. I Love This Thing So Fricking Much is a production of Through the Window Media. This episode was directed and edited by Sophie A. Katz. You can find us at Through the Window on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or Tumblr. That is THROU the Window at all those social media sites. Be good to yourself, be kind to each other, and you'll hear from us again soon.